Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 905, Richard here. We've got lots to talk about. We had a week off last week, so we've got builds to talk about with Windows Copilot. Can it really improve the way Windows works? We'll see. Inevitably, we're going to be talking about Twitter and the platform and where you can find us, where we're going and what's going to happen to Twitter. We've got some other builds of Windows. We've got some music tech. I've got a new album I want to talk about. We've got some more video or film that I got from the 1960s from my grandfather that I wanted to show. Richard talked about his new AV and lots of other stuff, so let's get straight to Richard. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Ian.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
We had, welcome. I was off as well, so we had a week off last week, so we're welcome to back to the listeners. I know Gary tonight, so it's just us tonight because Gary's.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, Gary's been limited. We've rate limited Gary today.
He's got rate limited speech, exactly. He's said more than 600 words, and that's it. He's done. You can hear no more.
He's going to be done till tomorrow now. So we've got lots of things to talk about tonight. We did have a week off, so we've got some new builds to talk about with Copilot, and I have got that working, so we can have a look at that. To mention Geo update. I've got some other videos that I've done. Catch up on your EV. But first, we can't really go too far without talking about Twitter. Things were all fine until last week.
Well, I wouldn't say fine. They were kind of, it
fine-ish.
The house was smouldering, and I think actually caught properly for the weekend. Yes, this is the latest change to Twitter, which is obviously a social media platform, which is having an interesting time since it was acquired late last year. And the change, I think, was, I guess, is to try and drive more people to subscribe. I suppose is that the thinking? So because it's I know the Elon Musk wants to monetize it a bit. But yes, the change was basically to I believe it was rate limiting, so you'd be limited to how many posts you can read per day.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Because he was concerned about levels of scraping and manipulation, which is, to be fair, that is a legitimate concern, because you look at some of the big AI, generative AI models, and we'll discuss Copilot at some point. They've built their models by scraping the data off the internet, so it is a legitimate concern. It's like Twitter is a vast library of freely available text. I can see why you'd perhaps want to try and work out how you can limit access, but yeah, it's not going well.
I mean, they've effectively broken the model in multiple ways. One of the things to do is you have to be signed in
many ways
to view a tweet. And previously, people often shared tweets, didn't they? So I would say, let's just say the Formula One. Someone, a journalist posts posts an article, shares the tweet, and then the tweet gets put into Reddit and all over various places. And that you have to be signed in now, so that means nobody can paste tweets into other things. Nope. So that's one use case gone. Rate limited means you can't read, you can't read the tweets or the adverts for that matter. Very clever. And Matt, the worst thing I think is they broke TweetDeck completely, and that's what I used all the time.
I mean, a lot of people. I mean, I've not used Twitter in anger now for a while, but I know lots of people who do use who use the TweetDeck tool, and it was, from what I can tell, just completely broken. It just went.
Well, I'll show you mine.
I can see. Is yours still down then? There we go. Yeah, that's not looking healthy. That's not looking healthy at all.
So this bit's actually working at the moment, which is the main feed. On my other machine, it's made me move to the preview version. The preview version you have to be subscribed to in 30 days' time. So there's no way I'm paying for any of this garbage. So that's the end of that's I never use the app. I never use the website because I don't like the view, but I do quite like to see I've got one for Insiders, and I've got a few different ones up on there, and none of it works now. Like I said, the preview one, I don't know whether it'll even let me load that. That one comes up rate limited and just doesn't load the columns either.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. It really is terrible.
Another thing as well is here on TDL, I've got the Facebook widget. I had a Twitter widget which showed my recent tweets, which I thought was quite handy, and to show recent tweets. Gone, yeah. So I've had to disable that because it just says no tweets, nothing to see, like you've not posted. So that's gone. So yeah, it's all looking very sad, and I just think it's a shame that in a relatively short space of time, things have got destroyed completely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how one can recover from this, because people will just move elsewhere, and there are alternatives out there. I mean, there is the likes of Mastodon, which has got its own problems. You've got Blue Sky, which is invite only right now, but
I like the Blue Sky. Yeah,
I think it's is it July the 6th that we're going to get the Instagram Threads being launched, which of course, if you're in the UK and of a certain age, Threads means something very different.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did. I think there you go. There's what I think of when I see Threads.
Me too, exactly. That's exactly what I thought. I thought you called it that, really? Okay. Did you not ask anyone who's a Gen X or around that era from the UK as what Threads actually means? It's like wasn't a happy show, was it?
No, it wasn't. No. And if anybody's not sure what we're talking about, this. I think we've talked about this in the past, actually, but this was a BBC program made in the style of a documentary, but it was a drama, 1985 or something like that, 84.
It was early 80s, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, about a scenario that could lead to a nuclear war, but made with the guy that did the voiceover from Horizon, which made it even more spooky because it was the news clips, of recreated news clips, and it's a whole story of a family in Sheffield and what happens to them, and it's horrendous, and it was so grim, and believe it or not, they showed it in schools. I saw it in school.
Yeah, I mean, I think I may have seen it in school as well. I mean, it was proper. Here's what's going to happen when the bomb gets dropped. Oh, right, okay. We never want this to happen. And of course, yes. Now Zuckerberg is named as his social media. Oh no!
What could go wrong? Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah. So you do wonder. Surely someone in Meta must have said, "Hey, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't call it this." Anyway, but I think it's. I mean, the timing's great because obviously we have the Twitter has chosen this weekend to go completely strange. And just as Threads is about to launch, this might be an alternative, but I think we'll see what happens, because obviously it's. I'm not sure how much it's going to pull from Facebook and things. I'm going to presume it'll pull your contact list and things. You could end up watching a stream of comments and things from your uncle or aunt or something. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
What's going to be in it? But
that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really sad at what's happened to Twitter, because for a period of time it was actually really useful. It's also got many journalist friends who depended on it. I know people who, they built up quite large social media followings. That they used it as a way to really start their careers and things. And it's just the last few months have got progressively more difficult, and it's not what it was. And of course, I think this latest change with the rate limiting change, particularly with what's happened to TweetDeck, is just, it's very sad. And at the moment, I don't think the alternatives like Mastodon or Blue Sky are really anywhere near the same level of penetration or usefulness that Twitter was at its peak.
No, absolutely right. I mean, and yeah, as I've mentioned before, I stopped using Facebook. I do have an Instagram, but I only got about 20 people I follow on there, so I don't really use it. Twitter is my main thing. I've got Blue Sky, thanks to your invite, and it's great, and it's quite nice. I've picked a few Microsoft accounts, people, and but it's not really the 2,000 odd people that I followed in the past. To rebuild that from scratch is
exactly.
It's not going to be the same. Even if we move to Instagram or whatever things, you've still got to rebuild it.
You got to rebuild it, and of course, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking to myself, well, if I rebuild this again now and start from scratch, and who's going to say in 5 years' time, 6 years' time, I won't do it again? I mean, I'm getting to the point where I think, well, perhaps I'll just simply maintain a blog like you do, on my own domain name, on my own website, and then I'll be spared from any problems. I can just have it to auto post on the various platforms and do it that way, because it's it's just sad to kind of lose that one source
Yeah.
that Twitter was. When Twitter was great, it was really good, but it just it's just got bad now.
I'm glad I retained my RSS feeds and I use Feedly. And still use Feedly, and really Twitter kind of replaced that, but now obviously that's coming back, so I'm going back to signing up to RSS feeds for websites, and which you can do for TDL as well, so you get the posts on there. In fact, talking of auto posts as well, that's something else they broke in the last couple of months as well. That doesn't work either, so you can't auto post to it.
Yeah, the API has been getting progressively more unstable.
Yeah, and it just doesn't work. You can't do it. I use WordPress, and WordPress withdrew that feature because it. But the other thing I used to use was Power Automate with Twitter, the Microsoft Power Automate, and that's gone as well because that broke, and I think they must fell out with someone at Microsoft, didn't they? So. Yes, so all the things that I was using it for have all gone now. So the only thing that's left there is the nice content, the content for the people that you communicated with over the X amount of whatever years it is. So
I mean, and the other thing, I mean, it's it's supposed to be an actual serious company. It's worth in theory billions, and I'm not quite sure how much it's worth now. But it's stuff like when you try and contact Twitter. I mean, in my day job, I'm a reporter. You try and contact them, and because it hasn't really got a comms department anymore, or comms team anymore, all you get back is an automated response of a poop emoji. Yeah. And it's like you think, okay, that's very funny, but I've got a legitimate question to ask here, and it's just that's just not a way of doing communication. You can't do communication via the CEO or whoever, the guys bought it, his Twitter account. It's just, I am sad. I'm made sad by it. Never mind.
Yeah.
Let's talk Copilot. I feel even sadder now.
So anyway, so you can find me on Blue Sky, and of course I do maintain the website, which is a good point. I hadn't really thought about it till you mentioned it recently, but I do maintain the site, which still goes, and no matter what social platforms around, I still keep the content on there. Even things like videos and things are all still linked back there.
Well, I was very excited to see a picture with lots of knobs and switches on there, Ian, which I'm hoping you're going to tell us all about later on.
I will, yeah. So you mentioned Copilot. So we had a new build. We've had a couple of builds actually since we last talked, but actually only one that had any particular new features. In fact, we've not had a Canary build for ages.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? Yeah, that's strange. This was a dev channel build 23493, which I think that came out 29th of June, I think, so late last week.
Yeah.
And that was actually, I'd say, the first time we've seen some what I call properly exciting new features to turn up. And this was basically the Copilot preview turned up. Were you able to access that? Okay.
Yes, I've managed to get that. Let's share. Okay, so let's see. So here we are. We've got. Oh, that's not sharing. No Teams share. There we go. So I have got that build installed, and here's that build, and you'll see I've got a little Copilot button down there.
Yep.
And so I can press that, and
there it is.
Recognize that interface because it looks exactly like the Bing chat one. And I did have a play around with it, and some things work, like say turn on dark mode. So there you can see it's a search and react. Would you like to switch to say yes? And there we go. It's turned on dark mode. So you can do things like that, and I can turn on light mode. Now I think that's just about as far as I've got. Oh yeah, you can switch on do not disturb, and things like that. But how about something obvious like open settings? That'd be helpful, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. Let's see how it opens settings. I have to think about it. And now it searches for how to open settings on mobile device. Not what I wanted. That.
No.
Okay, so forget that one. How about check for Windows updates? That's going to be a useful one, I'm sure.
Definitely, I'm sure it will know all about that too.
Yeah. Okay. So check for Windows updates. How to check for Windows updates on a mobile device? You may spot something here. How about change my background? Surely you know how to do that one. And let's check. Oh no, it's how to change background on a mobile device.
Of that.
Yeah. So that's my experience with it so far. I managed to change dark mode. I managed to put on Do Not Disturb, and those are things mentioned in the blog post. There was a couple of other ones as well. Got what they were now, but yeah. So I did manage to do that, but that was really the extent of it. Now there are other things you can do, like summarize this web page or write a poem about a cat or whatever. But that's just the stuff we've seen already in Bing. And then I think actually, if you right click on an element, do inspect, you can see it's just using the Bing chat web interface.
Because it does need. I mean, yeah, you've got to have I think Edge installed too, haven't you? A relatively recent version of Edge. So it's basically based the Edge, isn't it?
Yeah. Or you can. Oh, there was one other thing I did get it to do. Was it take script?
Hold on a second. Having portions of your desktop that's actually a web page. That sounds familiar. Where have we heard of that before?
Active Desktop. I loved Active Desktop. There you go. It's done as well. I've done that one, and it's done a snip. So, I mean, I can see. Let's be fair to Microsoft. It's just on the very first build with it on. Obviously, they've not hooked everything up in the back, and it's an enormous job building all integration. I'm sure they're doing that, but in the preview, it's a bit lackluster. It's a bit like, it reminds me a bit of the Cortana stuff. I
would say it's a good deal worse. I'd say it's a good deal worse than Cortana personally, because at least Cortana understood your local machine, whereas this doesn't. I mean, it'll do some clever things, but it doesn't seem to understand your local machine very well.
No, I mean the fact it kept giving me results based on a mobile device. So I went to, I just, like I said, Windows Update and everything else. It always checks on a mobile device. I mean, it is effectively the Bing chat from Edge. I'm not sure how much you would use it. I don't know. Maybe there's just a bit of a paradigm change. If you want to put dark mode, I know to go to settings. Maybe if you're a novice user and you want to go to dark mode, this is a good way of doing it without knowing where to go. But there are some obscure settings like, I bet it can't do it though. Change network to public. Things like that, which are always a bit fiddly to do. So you have to remember where was that setting, especially as they move it around every now and again. So maybe that would go. Of course, it just does a search for it. Yeah. So maybe that would be useful to have that interface where in the past you would Google for some, how do you do that in Windows? You Google it and then you do it. Now, I suppose that integration would be good, but at the moment it is early days, and I can see that this is not going to go public. I guess maybe another 12 months or something before this is this is ready.
I mean, this is very much, again, we should point out this is a dev channel, so there's no guarantee that it go anywhere near. I mean, they're trying it out. I mean, my take is at the moment it's an amusing thing. It doesn't seem to do anything useful, I can tell. But then I've felt that way about an awful lot of the chatbots and things. They seem to almost hinder me rather than help me. Although I have been very impressed with Copilot encoding. That's worked really well. But certainly, I think the chatbot, unless you ask it in a certain way, it seems to get very confused. And if you're doing that, and you think, well, that's kind of how I operate search engines. I have to ask them, I have to use certain keywords in my search phrase. If I'm having to do the same thing with a chatbot, ask it in a certain way, then I'm not clear how much better it is than simply using a search engine and learning how that works.
Yeah.
Because my feeling was the promise of this technology would be you talk to it in natural English, it'd be great and wonderful, fantastic. And it's like, well, actually, unless you unless you use context in a certain way, it gets confused quite quickly because you can push against limitations. But hopefully, as you say, in 12 months' time, it will evolve.
Yeah, and it is just a different way of, and maybe the generations will just get used to doing that, and they'll think it's a bit like the command line. You can disable a network card in command line, and if you know that command off the top of your head, then it's the fastest way to do anything is via command line, isn't it? But if you don't know the command, it's not the fastest way. So then you can go into the GUI and do it, and maybe this is the next bit where if you don't know where it is in the GUI, then you do the chat interface.
Yeah, definitely.
And and old timers like us that were happy with command lines or GUIs, will be like the one. Yeah. So it'd be like when some of my friends from the AS400 community, they like their green screen, and they know how to do everything in the green screen. So why would you need to do why would you use any other interface? But of course, things evolve, and people, when you don't know how to do it, then it's a different way. So maybe that's where it is.
Hopefully so. That'd be right.
There was one other thing as well in this. You had the homepage it's gone. That's interesting. I had the homepage for a while.
It's gone. Where's that gone?
Yes, it was there. I've got a video to prove it. So in the in settings, there was a homepage, and it had like tiles in there with all your settings in.
Yes, exactly. It would show things like cloud storage and things about your subscription to Microsoft 365 and what have you. It was it was quite a handy thing.
It was there on Friday.
And you've now lost it.
Yes,
were you rude to Bing? And did Bing take it away?
Yes, I think Bing's. I've upset Bing. It's taking my features away from me.
Yeah, so this basically changes what that homepage looks like. So you see, they call them interactive cards, I think, and you get like the recommended settings, cloud storage, account recovery, all that good stuff. I think there's even an Xbox thing in there as well, and also really usefully Bluetooth devices, which is actually that's pretty good because making Bluetooth work is like a black art. So sometimes it's it can be quite tricky to make Bluetooth work. So I'm always happy to see Bluetooth settings brought front and center. So
I've shared the screen. I definitely had that on Friday because I remember doing the video about it. So but Microsoft do say they roll these features out to selected groups and A/B testing and so on. So I thought normally once you get something they don't take it away, but obviously they did.
Yeah, I guess
they can do.
In your case, because it's worth pointing out both this and also the Bing chatbot thing, the Copilot thing.
Yeah,
they're all being rolled out to select users. So you're obviously lucky on one and lucky on the other.
Yeah. There was something that was interesting, and I tested this as well. So this still was the support for additional zip and file formats, compressed file formats like RAR and 7-zip and TAR and so on.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah, so no more installing WinRAR for that obscure RAR file or 7-zip when you get that file that someone sends you, or even if you're doing something in the Linux world, you get TAR files quite often, don't you? And so that's built. I tested that, and that does work. So that was quite good to see. They changed the sound input panel. I do remember seeing this before, quite a while ago. I think maybe it'd been on a Canary build, but you've got more details now. So when you can you can turn on spatial audio, you can change the volume of the individual apps and things like that. And I think that was the main changes with this build. Oh, and one I didn't get was when you come to, if you use the button to show the layouts when you're moving your windows around, you get an icon preview. And I remember that one showing up a while ago and that one disappearing as well. So I think they've done some bringing that back. So you can start to see this next release. This is, I think, will be 23H2. We'll have these features in. Whether we'll have the chat or the Bing Copilot, I'm not sure whether that will be ready.
I think there's a lot of work to do on that. But then, I mean, one could argue that when they launched the Bing chat, full stop, it wasn't really ready. So we'll see.
Yeah. So that's much. I still think we'll get a Windows update like that this year, and then the Canary channel will get the goodies at some point in the future. But it is kind of funny that the Canary channel is supposed to be the the bleeding edge latest features maybe not in, maybe out, in and out and things like that, and all the new features are going straight to dev or beta.
Yeah, so are there definitely no canary builds? Because I know they were saying that they'd be rolling out builds and potentially not saying anything.
Well, I haven't seen any.
Because I've not seen one for a long time now. But
it was the week before last. I think was the last one. I did do a video of it in combination with the dev channel build, because I think 2 came out at the same time, but there was nothing in there apart from a widget. So I think it was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago was the last one. And you're right, they don't actually. What they do is they do blog about them or post about them on Twitter to say that's that. So maybe they'll have to rethink their strategy for that as well now. Well, maybe they'll talk about them on Blue Sky,
yeah,
or in Threads.
I do find a fair amount of Microsoft PPP people now on Blue Sky.
Yes, that's probably in fact, I did put this on. I did tweet this, but that's not the right word, is it? What's the word for a tweet on Blue Sky?
I think it's called Skeet.
Right.
So Skeet, and Mastodon, it's Toot, I believe.
Right. It does remind me of the very early days of Twitter, where there was only a handful of technical people on there, and most of the conversations were about the actual platform itself, Twitter, in those days, and then you have some technical stuff. So it does remind me of that on Blue Sky at the moment, but I'm sure it'll kind of broaden out over time if it takes off. Of course, like as you say, it's not guaranteed. Exactly. But yeah, so they were using Twitter just to do the notification of that. So we'll have to see whether that is still the case. But yeah, I think we're 2 or 3 weeks ago that we had one of those. Maybe they're just really saving up for a big bang release and say, look, this is going to be amazing. But no one will know because they announced it on Twitter.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we also got a beta build last week as well. There wasn't too many changes in that. There was some fixes and a couple of bits and pieces. Talking updates as well, I did want to mention an interesting one for the Surface Duo. In the May update for the Surface Duo, if you had a VPN, and it was a certain combination, if you had the VPN installed, it would effectively crash when you do the startup. But it was a certain combination to do with VPNs, and you'd have to disable it or reset your Duo. But I didn't get that issue, so I installed the June update, which included a late May fix for some restarted issues, and that completely broke the launcher for me and for many people. So I don't know if you if you think Android, they've all got launchers, haven't they? If you've got a Pixel, you get the Google launcher. If you've got Samsung, you get Samsung launcher, and if you've got the Duo, you get the Microsoft launcher. And what I found after installing, and many other people as well, is it just run into a problem, cancel or reset. And if you did cancel, it just closed the launcher, which is pretty important on a on a phone to have a launcher. You could get to the settings, but you couldn't load any applications or anything. I tried a few things. I did see a couple of people say, "Oh, well, you can do this, or you can try removing permissions and then restarting." I tried all those combination things, nothing worked, and then I just reset the launcher, which is it's not the end of the world, but it's a bit of a pain because all the folders that you've created on your desktop or your phones and your shortcuts and your window groups, because on the Surface you can create window groups with I use it maybe social, you could have Twitter on the left and Blue Sky on the right, that kind of combination type thing. And that I had to reset all that, so I had to start again with all that. So it's not the end of the world, but it was a bit of a pain. But it did seem to affect most people, and it's a clear indication, I think, that the support teams are, or the Duo itself is in support mode rather than anybody using any features. There can't be that many people using them within Microsoft, because they surely would have picked up on that beforehand.
Yep.
And there's no insider. I always thought it was a bit strange there wasn't an insider channel. Thought that would have made sense. They've got insider channels for everything else.
Maybe one day there will be one, or maybe one day they'll just admit the Surface Duo is dead.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I can't see them coming back. I mean, yeah, you could have a couple of goes at a phone, but you can't give up twice, can you? And well, I suppose if you include the Kin, it's 3 times, is it? They've given up.
Yeah, no, I think it's yeah. I wish they'd keep trying with this stuff, because all they seem to do is have some great ideas, and then give up, and then someone comes along and does the same thing except a bit better.
Yeah, yeah. Although it was interesting I was sort of about to who's got the Flip, the Galaxy Flip. He really likes it, but he did say he's kind of over that form factor now, and
Really?
Yeah, he kind of wished. He really enjoyed it, especially when it was new. But now he kind of just wished he'd got a normal, S23 or whatever. Of course, he paid a lot for that as well. You paid the premium for the, so he's not going to be able to change straight away. But yeah, he kind of doesn't think it was worth the extra money that he paid for that.
That is interesting. It's certainly, once you've got over the fact it folds, it's actually quite a basic phone, really, in many ways.
And I mean, my Duo is working fine, so I have no issues. I mean, resetting it, it actually
exactly. It's working fine, he said, apart from the fact I had to reset it, the launch didn't work, and
yeah,
the hardware is magnificent.
Yes. So I've no pressing need to, it's not like my phone is on the last legs and change anything. But it would be interesting when it comes to the time where I want to change over. I don't feel like the Pixel Fold or anything else that where it looks a nice phone. The premium you pay for the Fold, I don't think would be worth it. But the Flip, it looks just too much like a smaller version of a normal phone. The Samsung ones, I don't know. We've got to the point where I think things have settled down in form factors again, and it's all a bit dull again, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I did have great hopes for the Surface Duo form factor with the folding thing, but that doesn't appear to really have taken off, has it? So
no, I don't. It's a niche product, and people when they see it, I went to a concert the other week, Pet Shop Boys, which is brilliant, and you get your ticket.
How was it?
Yeah, well, when you get your ticket scanned as your QR code as you go into the event, it was like, oh, I really like your phone. It still gets that reaction, but it's obviously it's getting a bit older now, and these things are a bit longer in the tooth now. But anyway, I have nothing interesting on phone, so maybe something will come out at some point, and I'll change my mind. But I can't. There's nothing that I particularly fancy at the moment. However, the Pet Shop Boys were fantastic. I think I did mention it to Gary last week. But, absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant show. Packed full of hits, starting with Suburbia, non-stop, 2 hours or whatever it was, straight through, all hits, no problem.
Well, exactly. See, that's what's good when you see a band from that era. The last thing you want to do is spend the whole show playing the new stuff and then doing the hits as an encore. You kind of, I'd like to hear you play the hits, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, yes, I know they've got a new album coming out soon, and it's great that they're still producing new music. But bang on Suburbia, West End Girls, and even the later stuff. I like all that stuff, so that's fine with me. But I went with lads and wife, and we had a great time. So yeah, bang out the hits. They knew what people wanted, and it was a great show. So I really did enjoy that.
Brilliant. That's great news.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a good show. So I do enjoy that. I don't know. I think I'm going to level 42 next for the next one.
Oh, great! That'd be good too.
Yes. I got a lot of 80s shows going at the moment.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, definitely not. No. And talking of retro stuff, actually, I did post. You remember a few months ago, I got those 8mm films converted to digital. Yes. So I posted one of them, and I said, one of them was mainly family ones, so I didn't post too much of that. But I went through I can share this one. I went through the family one. Actually, the end of it is pretty much it's not too much. There wasn't too many issues with the family stuff necessarily on that. So I've posted that, and it's Heysham in Lancashire, and actually it's pretty interesting. I've been showing a few people now, and just looking at people dressed in long coats and
Yep.
That's my grandfather who actually shot the film.
Oh, look at that.
That was the back of him there. Yeah. This is Heysham in Lancashire, 1964, and Heysham Harbour, but it's a lovely little village actually, a quaint little place. And in fact, looks exactly the same. It hasn't the village itself hasn't changed at all. So anyway, I've posted that online, and the music that I composed for it, that I've fitted that with it as well. So you can have a look at that on the YouTube channel. But what was interesting is we were talking about a few lads in the office today is how it looks so different with nobody on phones. So if you watch a scene, perhaps where people sat outside a shop or a cafe or something like that, no one is ignoring each other. They're actually talking to each other, and people are walking down the street talking to each other. And people are interacting with each other rather than sort of trying to work out why they reached their Twitter rate limits. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, if anybody's interested in the 1960s villages, then and life, then check that out. But it's a nice slice of the 1960s and the harbour and there. So if anybody's familiar with that area, you'll see that. See my grand there making an appearance. And anyway, these are the ones that get finished. So I'll include a link for that in the show notes. But there's a brief cameo from my mum. With the binoculars looking out. So yeah, great. That I know I mentioned that before in the past, but it was good fun filming that, or getting that converted and then doing the music. So
I mean, what's fascinating, I find about watching these things is, of course, that's only less than 20 years after the end of World War II.
Yes.
Which I just find it so just incredible to watch. Okay, this is almost 60 years old now.
Yeah.
Incredible, really.
Yeah. Next year it'll be 60 years old, won't it? Yeah. See their little sunset that my granddad filmed as well to end the video. So the credit goes to him.
And this is where you need to get some AI tools to stabilize the image and clean it up and make it look lovely.
Yeah, and I did have a look at some AI tools for actually cleaning, but in the end I thought, no, I'm going to leave it as it is. Actually, maybe Peter Jackson will want to come and take a look at it in the future and upscale it. But I quite like that look and feel of it.
So what kind of camera was your grandfather using? Because when the quality is actually really quite impressive.
I don't know. I have no idea. I think I showed him, didn't I? I showed you the tapes or the reels, the films, but I have no idea what the camera was. He was an enthusiast. He wasn't, he wasn't professional. He was just an enthusiast. And like I said before, I think I've inherited a lot of his enthusiast qualities for these kind of things. Whereas for me, it's filming it on your phone, but he was doing it on that. But yeah, I have no idea what he used.
Yes, it's obviously better quality than if you'd filmed on a Surface Duo 1, that's for sure.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
is that harsh? Too soon?
We certainly won't be watching those in 60 years' time, will we?
No.
But yeah, I don't know what he did, and I think the degree, the amount of work that's gone into doing this and then editing it, sticking it all together, and there's a lot of edits in this. He's done a fantastic job, and I remember vaguely discussing it because he got into video cameras. I think he had a Betamax video camera, the big massive Betamax things. He had one of those that he used to take. He took on holiday as well, and he mentioned but of course being being a teenager, that's like, I don't want to talk about film technology. That's old, isn't it? So it's only later years you get to appreciate the stories of the other generations and stuff. So we never really talked about it, but of course he was a big musician fan and played the organ, which is I think where I got to my love of synthesizers from, really. So this track is available on my Spotify.
Yay, there we go.
Yeah, so that's called Summer 64. So you can listen to that track there. And this is the new album called Tangents 2. There is no tangents. There was a song Tangents off one of my other albums, but no Tangents 2. And it was a kind of a little joke, really, about, Tubular Bells 2 or Bat Out of the Hell 2 or all these sequel albums. So I've made a sequel album for an album I didn't make in the first place. So anyway, that's all there. So there's some 80s Pet Shop Boys type stuff. There's some Tangerine Dreams type stuff. A bit of Mike Oldfield type stuff on there as well.
I'm going to ask you about Sega 80s video games.
No, there's no Sega 80s video games. Because I've got this is what my plan was to release this and then think, right, what shall I do next? And maybe I'll look at something like that. But unfortunately, I've already on what's next, which does involve a vocoder and some lyrics. I'm just writing some lyrics at the moment.
Cool. That sounds great.
Yes. I'm no singer though, so there won't be any singing on it, but I might have it played. So anyway, so you can have a listen to that. That's on Spotify, and the video for Ultimatum is actually on the YouTube channel as well, which features some of my drum kits and drum machines and so on. Because as you know, I've been going through my old kit and you know, tried to relearn it. So the latest one is with this Korg Radius. This is the one that you saw with all the controls and knobs on it. Yeah. So this is actually a relatively recent one. This is a 2006 Korg Radius, which is a multi-engined synthesizer, effectively. It's analog modeling, so it behaves like an analog. You can model an analog synthesizer, but it's got samples in there. Vocoder, which is where I've been using the vocoder, and you can process sounds in, and it's got sequencers and things. So it's quite complex. It's probably, of all the stuff that I've done so far, it's probably the most complex one to do, a video to do. So but yeah, so in the video anyway, I break it down and give you some demos and show you how to make the individual sounds. And you see, it's quite an interesting design. So it's like a modular design where it's a rack mount with the keyboard, and I've got the keyboard. And I've actually got another keyboard perched on top of that there, like that. So it makes it a nice little stand on there. So and Windows software as well, which amazingly still works. If you've got if you're on the Mac, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be able to get the 2006 editor working on a Mac. I don't know. Would you be able to get 2006 Mac software working on a modern machine?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it'd be Intel based, so
yeah,
it would. I think Intel software still works on Mac, so yeah,
probably okay.
Yeah, I mean, it depends if the software is going to whinge piteously about which version of Mac OS it's running on.
Yeah.
I guess the issue might be. I mean, there are compatibility problems with Intel software on Macs, and of course Apple is driving everyone towards the M1 Mac or M2 or M whatever number you want to choose Mac these days. And so pretty much any Intel app is going to have to run through Rosetta, I think. It's called Rosetta, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, which works pretty well, but I have run into a few compatibility things. I tell you what, Ian, if you send me the hardware, I'll fire it up and I'll let you know.
I'll send you a link to the software you can just download. Well, the Windows one works anyway. No, I didn't.
Was that an XP window I could see there, or was it a Vista?
Well, this was running on Windows 10 now. I took the screenshots on the music laptop. Yes, it would have 2006 would have been Vista, or it would have been XP, wouldn't it? Vista XP time. I think probably I ran it on XP initially and then transferred it to Vista. But yeah, it runs fine on Windows 10 and Windows 11. So no issues on there. So it uses a MIDI. It's a really nice synth. It's the demo or the presets are a bit dated, so they sound like a very early 2000s. Which, if you're into that, sound quite good. But I of all the kit that I've got, it's probably one of the harder ones to fit into the mix with other tracks without it sounding too, just stuck out. Whereas some of the other synths you just go straight in. But it's like anything with a tool. With a bit of, if you do it prepared to put a bit of time in and a bit of skill, then actually it's very powerful. And I think it's probably underutilized in my environment, really. But yeah, I still like it. So
that's right.
I'm not good at parting with old music tech.
It does look gloriously retro as well. It just looks brilliant.
Yeah, it does. I think it's probably one of the more modern synths that I've got, actually, especially if you compare it to the Gen from 1978. But all these lights do flash a bit as well, so it has got that kind of. It's very hands-on, which is good. But it is analog model. It's not analog. It's a DSP based. But yeah, good. So anyway, that's on the YouTube channel along with the demo song as well. But it is a good thing to do, to go back through some of your old tech. It's different, I suppose. With all computers are different. You can't. A 2006 computer, you're not going to get a lot out of, whereas a 2006 synth can still sound relevant and good now, and as an 1978 one would do. So. Yeah, with musical instruments, you can get a bit more on them. I guess the only thing is they are ticking time bombers when the components will start failing. And I've had to swap some batteries out, but 2006 should be okay.
Definitely change batteries out before they explode and do something awful to the boards. Lost so many PCs that way. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, there's a few Korg mid 80s, early 80s ones that the battery is super corrosive. So when it leaks, it just destroys the board to the point where you've got to get a replacement board. Most of the ones I've had so far, the Yamaha ones, they're just those watch batteries, and the CR2, whatever they are, and they don't corrode them; they just die. But yeah, it's a bit like maintaining the old computers like BBC Micros and things, and it's swapping the caps out, and it's not just a question of switching them on once they get to a certain age. You've got to maintain them.
Yeah, I mean, caps and things, you can recap. I mean, you can recap machines. A lot of the issues is if, say, a chip gets taken out, and well, for whatever reason you simply can't get hold of a replacement or blow a new EEPROM. It's just it is a challenge. But they're also, I'm always heartened by the ranks enthusiasts who will find ways to keeping these things going and find workarounds.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there was I didn't realize. Fortunately, I missed the event. The Computer Museum in Cambridge had a music event on at the weekend.
You should have gone. That'd be great.
Yeah, it would have been good if I could even got someone to come on and talk about it, because that would be great. 'Cause it actually came up on my on OneDrive. It shows you your memories just like Facebook. It was actually 2 years ago today. We were down at the Computer Museum's at the Cambridge one and at the one at the
Bletchley Park.
Bletchley Park, yeah. So it was actually 2 years ago we were there. It doesn't seem that long ago. Yeah, that was our first post-COVID trip out, I think.
It was, yeah, because we stayed in that was that the Trafford was the Prem or the? I mean, we obviously stay in the very best of Westerns, the most premier of inns, don't we? So,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. It was all a bit still a bit weird then, wasn't it?
It was strange, yeah, because there were rules and things you get the airport. But again, I was very impressed with how the teams have managed to get keep those museums running even after the enforced close down. It was very impressive.
Yeah, it was, and
I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased to see them still going and still seemingly going from strength to strength. So it's a great story.
Yeah, they had a great show. I'll share a picture for you.
Don't do that.
Yeah, they had a great event.
Oh goodness me! I've still got a T-shirt as
well. So yeah, we had a great time there. But they are really worth going to, those museums. So definitely recommend those.
Absolutely. I mean, I could not recommend. Yeah, I mean, really, if you do both, and both is great. I mean, the Cambridge one is obviously more about kind of the computers and things that you might remember from the 70s and 80s, whereas the Bletchley Park one seems to be much more about the kind of more the business machines and also the very old stuff they used in World War II or just after World War II, and they did the computing. And the thing is, it was all working. It was all functioning. And I mean, I really liked in Bletchley. Actually in both places, just the enthusiasm on display from the volunteers who'd be very happy to talk all through all kinds of things. So yeah. Absolutely superb. Both places highly recommended.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That looks like the 1980s office. Is that right?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Yeah. A bit of Windows.
Windows 1 booting up. Windows 2.
Yeah. It was really good event, and so we do definitely recommend those. So and like we said, people keeping these things alive is amazing. I mean, these machines in these pictures have got polythene sort of over the keyboards, but that's not for the machines to stop you playing. That was the COVID thing, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Probably gone
Basically,
now.
so they can wipe them down and keep doing. I'm not quite sure how much that is still there, but yeah, actually superb places. I just now see, well, watching that, I'm gonna have to go back now.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, so they had a great show, great places to go and visit. Yeah, so definitely recommend that. And so you can check out the videos on our YouTube channel with all of our road trip from there, which we did 2 years ago. Who believed that was 2 years ago?
We should do it again.
Yeah, definitely. Talking of road trips as well, how are you getting on with your EV now? You've got used to it, I suppose.
Well, so far, I mean, up until this morning, very well, and then this morning, managed to drive over a screw in the road and managed to puncture a tire, which is not so good. But yeah, this is the Kia Niro EV I've been driving around. Yeah, it's doing some weird things. The range keeps going up, even though I drive like an idiot with windows open and stuff. It's now getting 298 miles range. It just keeps going up and
That's
up.
Good, yeah.
And the book is 283 is what it should get, but it's I gather it learns from your driving style how far it thinks it can go. So, and that's just ordinary driving, motorway driving, in town driving, air conditioning on, windows open, whatever. Driving it like a normal car, not carefully using the braking stuff. So it's really, really impressive. Although shame Gary's in here because I've got a bone to pick about GridServe. I've used GridServe a few times to charge up when I've been out and about because they're very good for the rapid charge, because that's one of the real problems I think with EVs is when you need to charge them on the road, you've got to find a place that's got a rapid charge, because it's otherwise you'd be there for hours. Whereas we used a rapid charge. Went to Chelmsford the weekend and came back and had, because I don't like to run it down to nothing. I like to have a little bit of buffer in there. I decided to just put another 100 miles on the thing just in case. And so we stopped at a GridServe place, plugged in, walked in, used the service station, bought a sandwich, and then came back out again. And then drove off, and it was fine. But, and it's a big but, at this particular GridServe, which was, you kind of went to the lot, this is what the future's going to be like, because it's just, there were no petrol pumps. I think it was all electric car vehicle charging points, and you walked into the thing, and it had mini gymnasium in there. It had all, it was a very, it was kind of almost like a showpiece of how they think it's going to go. You had a self-service Marks and Spencer stuff in there. It was a very nice place where you could sit down, have a sandwich, and look around. But, and it's a big but, the position of the charge points was clearly not designed with the Kia Niro, which has got a front charging point in mind. It was designed for cars that charge at the rear. And that was a real problem, because it meant that when we parked in, we had to park across two spaces to make it, because it wouldn't stretch or work. Now, I don't know if that's me not understanding how to work it correctly or what, but it was quite maddening, really. And so we kind of pulled into space, and the cable wouldn't reach the front of the car, so we had to back up over the space behind us so the cable would reach. Which
right, yeah. And then someone thinks you're a pig parker.
Well, exactly. It's not a BMW, honestly, it's not.
I'm not a pig parker, honest.
But that's the only thing I've got to say. This negative. Apart from that, it's such a weird experience. It's I mean, there's two things that I find strange about it. One is obviously the fact that as long as you aren't using too much to public charging, it just costs nothing to run this car. It just doesn't use any power, and the range just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. Those are kind of the thing around the economy. And the other thing is the performance. It really goes fast. I gather it's not particularly fast EV, but it's plenty fast enough for me. When I put my foot down, it just takes off. And I have to say, having been very much a cynic about EVs, I'm now fully converted. I think it's great. It's really good, but only if you can charge it off the road. That'd be the key thing I'd say. If you haven't got off-street parking outside your house, EVs not a good option at the moment. Not really, because public charging can be very, very expensive.
Yeah. I think, like you said, if you're doing occasional trips, then you're okay, aren't you? But if you haven't got the infrastructure at home, then you're in trouble.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and actually at home, I have a few issues. I've got the OMI charge to put at home. and I've realised I'm having to reboot it about once a month. It just seems to lose connection with the mothership, and when it does that, it defaults into I'm going to charge up whenever you plug in mode, which is unfortunate because obviously the time to charge EVs is from about 11:30 till 5 in the morning, and it says no, I'm going to charge now. So you suddenly see electricity bill going up, not massively, but noticeably. Whereas normally when it charges overnight, I don't really see it. I don't really notice it. It costs not a lot to charge.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
so
it shows that it's doable.
It.
Yeah. I think that's that's one of the things. So I could make a decision. Don't have to make a decision really until next year, but then as time goes on, it kind of makes more. It makes more sense, and especially as the infrastructure improves and everything else.
Exactly, but again, only if you can charge it at home. That is, I think, for me, as a person who's gone from, I'm not a massive evangelist about EVs. I think it's really good, but I think you've got to be realistic and say that's going to be resolved really, because there's a lot of parking in the UK which is on-street parking. So I don't know how we're going to get to the point where, is it 2030? I think they're supposed to stop selling new internal combustion engines. I think it's something like that, isn't it? I'm not sure how we're going to get to that, because it's like, well, there's a lot to do, and the other thing is, it's just, it costs a lot of money to. I mean, it's not the same as petrol costs, but it's still expensive to charge these things, and they do cost more than petrol costs to buy up front. So you kind of need to look at your figures very, very carefully, particularly if you can't do charging at home. Yeah,
maybe inductive charging. As you drive,
they can't even fill in the potholes. Do you really trust them to put cables under the tarmac?
Yeah, I've noticed that. I've noticed my camera, the dash cam, has a thing where when you go over a bump, a really heavy bump, it does a little beep to tell you that it's captured that, recorded that.
Yeah.
I think if you have an incident. And you driving around now, it's always going off. There's so many potholes.
Well, yeah. I mean, my other car, which is a 30-year-old Golf, when I actually rebuilt it about 7 years ago, I wanted really hard, sporty suspension, so I did that. And now I can't drive it around town because it's so uncomfortable, because the roads are so rutted and potholed. It's just a really unpleasant experience. You got to think, okay, well, I'll swerve to avoid that pothole. Bang, down another one. Oh, crikey.
Yeah. It feels like your wheel's going to fall off. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm going to have to do some work on that and think, okay, I've got to actually soften that suspension up, and maybe even, because it's got very low profile tyres, to think maybe I might have to go back to having quite chunky tyres.
Well, that's where you know you're an old man, when you're going over comfort over
exactly
over speed.
Exactly. So quartering speed is great, but it really hurts when I go over potholes. My back hurts now. Dear.
Yeah. That's an old man problem. Well, I think that's just about every time we've got for this week. We should be back same time, same place with Gary. I'm trying to line a few guests up as well for us for the next few weeks as well. So if you've got any suggestions for guests as well, anybody can get in touch, ian@thislifestyle.com. You can find me on Blue Sky at Ice Dixon, I think that's what it is. There are a longer URL for Blue Sky, but if you do go onto thislifestyle.com, you'll see my Blue Sky and my Twitter and my YouTube and everything else linked. So that is now the easiest way to send it. To send it. There's a nice little service. Have you heard of Hyperfollow?
No, I've not.
It comes part of it's a service that DistroKid give you, which is the distributor that I use for Spotify. But they have a Hyperfollow, which is just, I'm trying to remember the name of ones in the past, but basically you set up a Hyperfollow and you can have like a custom page where you can set up a bit of a bio and links to your socials and everything else. So it's like a one-click link service.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure you can probably sign up for an account, but it comes as part of distro. So when you launch a new album, you can make a Hyperfollow link to all the different stores and things like that. So so there you go. So you can find me in all those usual places. So where can we find you?
Well, I'm going to say Blue Sky, which I think I'm Bridget _speed. and I'm not even going to try and do the Mastodon on this because it's really complicated.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah.
Although, in truth, I mean, I'm probably more on Blue Sky now than I was on Mastodon, mainly for the reasons you say, which is it kind of reminds me a little bit of how Twitter used to be when it first started. There were a lot of technical people, people there. So, although a lot of them were whinging about their platform they're into, but I'm in both those places.
Excellent. Right, we'll be back same time, same place this week, and we'll see you then.
Cheerio.